It's 18 hours.
Huh.
Hey.
Hi. So can y'all see me?
No.
Okay, so I don't know what's happening. It says my video is working. So I don't know why it's not showing me.
Yeah. It shows on this screen that your video is working and your audio is.
Yeah,
but I don't see you.
You can't see me, right? I can't see you either. I see all of you. Okay, so I don't know what to do. Because it says that it's working. FaceTime HD camera built in. Choose virtual background. Don't use a virtual background. Video settings. And it's on video. Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do here.
When you click on your video option, does it have integrated webcam as an option?
Integrated web camera. I see select a camera. I see FaceTime HD built in. Choose virtual background. Then when I go to video settings, I see video, audio, share screen, chat, virtual background, recording profile, statistics, feedback.
Under select camera, is the HD FaceTime selected?
Yes. It sure is.
Try unselecting that and see if that does anything.
Unselecting it. Okay. It doesn't give me another option to select.
It's not another option.
I don't know. Maybe it's
Are you using your laptop, Al?
No, I'm using my desktop.
Okay.
Because it works better on my desktop than it does on my laptop.
I just wondered if the camera, would it have maybe moved and something's disconnected? Like, do you have
it's a built-in camera.
Oh, it's a built-in camera. So
yeah.
Hey, Al, I'm sending you a picture.
Okay.
Look at that and see if you have that thing checked that I showed on this picture. Like when you first click.
Okay.
That top one where it says it's got a check mark by that one. Do you have that checked since you're using your computer?
Yeah, I don't even have that option. It doesn't give me that option.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't even have that option. It says, under select a camera, it gives me FaceTime HD camera built in, choose virtual background and video settings.
Wow.
Mayor Pro Tem, is there a slide, a cover that covers your camera?
No. Yeah, I don't have anything over my camera.
Okay. No. Thank you.
Well, okay, let me try this. I will just restart my whole computer and see if that'll help, and then I'll come back in.
Okay, so do you want us to wait or start?
No, please go ahead and start to keep everyone on schedule, and I'm just going to restart my entire computer and see if that helps.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's we're at our September 1st, 2020 meeting. It is 6:03. I will call the meeting to order. And would you join me in a moment of silence? Okay, so we will now pledge allegiance to the flag. Kelly, do you have one? Oh, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to welcome everyone who joined us today. We are always happy to have you with us. The city is operating under a state of emergency related to the spread of COVID-19. And in order to remain consistent with limiting physical interaction and the potential spread of COVID-19, City Council meetings will be held electronically until further notice. We appreciate your patience as we go through this together. We follow a written agenda, which is available on our website at salisburync.gov/agendas. City Council meetings are broadcast at 16, our local government TV station, which is available on Spectrum Channel 16 and Hotwire Channel 394. Meeting air times are posted on the station's website, access16.tv. You can also watch current and past City Council meetings on demand from the city's website, salisburync.gov/videos. So we are now at item number 4, adoption of the agenda. So do I hear a motion to adopt our agenda?
Make a motion to adopt agenda.
Okay. Do we have any changes to the agenda? We have a motion to adopt. Do you want to include a closed session after this meeting at the end of it? Graham, what would be the right procedure for that, please?
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm just getting back in. Can you catch me up? What are we deciding on?
Okay, we just, I asked, we're at number 4, adoption of agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked for a motion to adopt, and we had that from Tamara, but I also asked, do we want to add to this agenda before we adopt it, a closed session at the end?
Okay.
Okay, and I was asking Graham what the proper procedure would be for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If you wanted to go into closed session, you would make a motion to go into closed session. Well, you could add it to the agenda, but at the appropriate time, you would make a motion to go into closed session, and then you would state the reason that you are going into closed session.
Okay, so I'll just make it item number 19, and adjourn will become 20. And so we'll deal with that exactly at the end of our meeting. Is that okay with everyone? Tamara, are you okay with adding that?
Yes, I'd make a motion to the amended agenda
Okay.
for the adoption.
Okay, thank you. And so I will do the roll call. Tamara.
Aye.
Al Higgins.
Aye.
Brian Miller.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
Karen Alexander. Aye. So we have adopted our agenda. At this time, Number 5, the mayor is to proclaim the following observances. First Responders Day, September 11th, 2020. Suicide Prevention Month, 2020. And Salisbury Go Transit Month, September 2020. All of these have been posted on Vimeo, so you can access those. And also, I'll be giving the written paper proclamation to the police department and our fire department. And suicide prevention will be given to Vicki Edelman, who is one of our city employees, and she requests this every year. She's very, very involved in the suicide prevention programs. And then Salisbury Go Transit Month will go to Rodney Harrison, our transportation director. So we're at number 6, council to consider the consent agenda. A, adopt minutes of the regular meetings of October 4th, 2020 and August 18th, 2020. B, award Officer Rebecca Sexton her sidearm and badge in recognition of her retirement from the Salisbury Police Department, October 3rd, 2020. C, award a contract to Diversified LLC in the amount of $348,583.80 for construction of the Rowan Regional Crime Center, which will be located in our Salisbury Police Department. This project is funded by a Strategic for Policing Innovation grant received from the Department of Justice in 2019. And D, adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Article 3 of the Code of the City of Salisbury relating to the Fire Prevention Code to ensure the fire department is enforcing the latest edition of the North Carolina Fire Code. And E, authorize the city manager to execute a contract renewal with Atlantic Coast Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $500,000 for construction related to the 5th phase of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project. Funds for this contract are included in the adopted budget. So do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Al Haggins. Al, I'll do the roll call. Your vote.
Aye.
Tamara Sheffield.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
Brian Miller.
Aye.
And Karen Alexander, aye. So we have that motion adopted. So now council is to receive public comment. So Kelly, do we have any requests?
No, Mayor, no one signed up for public comment tonight.
Okay. So I guess I don't need to even open it then, or do I need to open and close it? No. Okay, thank you. Number 8, council to consider voluntary annexation of Rowan Woodland Apartments located at 2715 Statesville Boulevard, tax map 330, parcel 151, effective September 15th, 2020. And our presenter will be City Engineer Wendy Brendel. So Wendy, you're up.
Good evening. This request originally came to you back in July to start the process in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 168-31. Staff has found that it does meet the requirements of the statute. So at this meeting, things will be a little different than normal. So this is the meeting that we typically hold the public hearing and then adopt an ordinance to annex the area. In this case, we're going to hold the public hearing, but because of virtual meeting laws, there has to be a 24-hour period open for comment. So we will come back at the 15th meeting to adopt that ordinance. So I'm going to share my screen.
And Wendy, where will the area be that the public can go and make comments? Will we give them a link, or how will that be done?
Kelly Baker can answer that better than I can.
Okay, I'll get that from Kelly.
They can email me, Mayor, since my email's on the agenda. For the public hearing portion, they can email at kbake@salisburync.gov.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly. Just so people will know what area they're speaking of, I've shared my screen. I guess everyone can see the map that's up. Okay. So the area that we are considering annexing is shown here in the blue. This is Statesville Boulevard, Jake Alexander Boulevard. The dark red line is our city limits. And you can see this is a contiguous annexation. It does touch our city limits at this point. The development is called Woodland Creek Apartments. And the lot is currently vacant, but when it is built out, it will house approximately 240 units. Our finance department has determined that this would generate a little over $72,000 in property tax revenue, given the conditions in FY 2021. Of course, once developed, the city will incur some additional costs for police and fire protection, which is indeterminable. Typically, well, the statutes require that any annexations become effective. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go to the next. There we go. This is a little bit closer view. Statutes require that any annexation become effective within 6 months of adoption. The county prefers that we make annexations effective either June 30th or December 31st for tax purposes, but they are willing to accept those at different dates if the petitioner is requesting that. In this case, the petitioner does want the annexation to become effective when adopted. I have cleared that with the Rowan County Tax Assessor's Office. So this annexation will become effective September 15th if council so chooses to act on the ordinance at that time. So now I will turn it over for the public hearing. And Kelly, do you prefer me to leave the screen up so we can see the area during the public hearing?
Yes, that will be fine.
Okay.
So I'm opening the public hearing. So Kelly, did we have anyone call in to ask?
We had a request from Jonathan Cranford through Wendy to speak, but I don't see him on the meeting. There's no one in the attendees list. So he's not on the meeting.
So he didn't
And he was
send
the only
an
person.
email or anything to know what his position was on it.
So he's representing the developer. The petition came through him. So he
would obviously be in favor of it.
Yes.
Okay. Any other person, Kelly?
No, ma'am. He was the only person who signed up to speak.
Okay. So we will close the public hearing and I'll turn it back to Wendy. So do you have anything else today?
Only if council has questions of me. Otherwise, we'll come back on September 15th with an ordinance for consideration.
Okay. So council, any questions for Wendy?
Wendy, my mind is not as clear as it may have been at one time. Have we already approved a site plan for this and this is just an annexation step, or is that coming down the road?
So this has been through TRC, And engineering is currently reviewing the construction plans. And as part of the approval, we did require them to annex for water and sewer services.
So annexing them into the city does not require approval of their site plan, correct?
That is correct, yes. They're separate.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council?
Madam Mayor, I think I heard that we don't need to do a public meeting, or did you say the person is in the room or is not? Kelly, I'm sorry. He's not. So I think we're supposed to open it up and close it, but if we satisfied all those requirements, I'd be happy to make a motion. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I think that we can't make a motion today because that we need to give the public 24 hours.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Just to clarify. Is that right, Wendy?
That is correct. So there's no motion today. And again, I'll come back on September 15th with an ordinance to consider.
And just to clarify, we will not have a public process or a public hearing on that day. It's just council will vote.
That is correct. There will not be a public hearing on the 15th.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll close the public hearing. Okay. Thank you, Wendy. Council is to receive a presentation reporting results from market analysis performed by the UNC School of Government Development Finance Initiative. The presenters will be Community Planning Services Director Hannah Jacobson and Ms. Sonia Turner and Mr. Rory Dawling from the Development Finance Initiative at UNC School of Government. So you're up, Hannah.
Good evening, Council. So pleased to be here tonight to introduce Sonia and Rory from the UNC School of Government's Development Finance Initiative. We brought them on board in January of 2020 because we started to realize that there were a number of projects that we were working on that the missing ingredient was really, really good market analysis data. And that's what these guys specialize in. So the work that they're doing is going to be able to help us with a number of projects that we're working on, looking at what the potential for the Kesler mill site is, helping us make an informed decision about the Civic Center site, and setting some realistic expectations for the downtown master plan that we're collaborating with DSI on. So without further ado, I do want to turn it over to Sonia and Rory, but I will be available for any questions you have.
Okay, thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah. And good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thank you for allowing us to present this evening. I'm going to share my screen. So just to confirm, can everyone see this home screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So I am Sonia Turner. I'm a project manager with the Development Finance Initiative, and my colleague Rory Dowling, he's a development advisor, and I believe he is on as well. Rory, would you like to say anything?
I'm here. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here and sharing the results of our market analysis and talk a little bit about what else we're working on with the city.
Great. So with that, I will dive right in. So during this presentation, we're going to give you an overview of the project and then look at the market analysis as it pertains to 5 specific uses. So we looked at office, retail, multifamily, single family, and hospitality, all of which market rate. And then we'll talk through our next steps. And so just a little bit of who DFI is. So since 2011, DFI has partnered with local governments across North Carolina, as well as in Virginia and South Carolina, to attract private investment into transformative real estate development projects. And we have now assisted with over 134 projects across the state. So we bring specialized real estate finance and development expertise that has a proven track record of finding solutions to complex development projects. And for the city of Salisbury, we were specifically engaged to provide two types of technical assistance: opportunity site identification services focused in downtown, and then phase 1 pre-development assistance for the 2 city-owned sites and residential areas adjacent to downtown. And that is the Kesler Mill site and the Civic Center site. DFI's pre-development process follows that of the private sector. So we look at demographic and income. We look at what's happening in the economy. We want to understand trends happening on the ground through looking at tax parcel data. We conduct a market analysis to better understand the supply and demand trends happening within a given area. And then we also look at financial feasibility and factor in public interest, all for the objective of presenting to you a feasible project. And so for Salisbury, we actually looked at 3 different study areas. For the opportunity site ID portion of our contract, we're looking at downtown Salisbury, which includes the boundaries of the MSD with the addition of parcels to the north and to the south directed by staff so that we could explore some activity happening in those areas as well. For the phase 1 pre-development portion of our contract, we are looking at the Kesler Mill site and the surrounding adjacent houses and parcels to that site. And for the Civic Center, we did the same. We looked at the adjacent parcels to that site. To date, we have conducted a fair amount of our analysis. We've met with staff back in March and also May, and then recently in August, just to share our preliminary market analysis findings. And so we have done what we call the community scan, which again is looking at that demographics, income, economy information, parcel analysis, which is looking at that tax data, tax parcel analysis data to understand trends. And then today, market analysis, which is what I'll be sharing with you. We look at site analysis. That's where we start to identify within our opportunity site ID services, which sites present the most catalytic redevelopment opportunity. We do a high-level financial analysis, and then we'll be back hopefully soon to present our final recommendations for the work that we've done. So now moving into the market analysis. So our process for market analysis is studying existing conditions in downtown Salisbury and analyzing key market indicators to understand supply and demand in the area as it pertains to the 5 uses that I mentioned: office, retail, market rate multifamily, market rate single family, and hospitality. And so we define a trade area or market area. We look at those current conditions, we try to understand demand drivers, and then we try to estimate based on these things what the projected future demand might be. Now, what's unique about the time we're in is that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so we wanted to make adjustments to our assumptions in the market analysis to try to hint at or try to accommodate rather the impact that COVID might have on our analysis. Now we understand that the pandemic, it seems things are changing every day. We're right in the middle of it. And so what our analysis does is we actually focus our analysis on conditions pre-COVID. So our data and analysis is based on 2019 market census data. However, we also did qualitative data collection and made a few market assumptions to try to capture what's happening with COVID. And you'll see that peppered throughout the presentation. So just to reiterate, we will show market conditions pre-COVID, but you'll see additional analysis for COVID impacts, both throughout this presentation, but ultimately in our final report that we will provide to Hannah. So as we move on, we are, as I've mentioned, we're looking at 5 specific uses, and this is how those uses are being viewed in light of the different study areas. So for downtown, as we walk through these different areas, we invite you to keep in mind that we're thinking office, retail, multifamily, and hospitality. The findings from that will be most relevant for downtown. Kesler Mill, we're focusing on multifamily and single family in our analysis. In the Civic Center, we're focusing primarily on hospitality. And so before I move on to our office analysis, were there any questions?
I have a question about the Kesler Mill study area. Is there any thought in terms of any kind of mixed use or commercial portion of that area? The Kesler Mill, since it is adjacent to some commercial sites.
Thank you, Mayor. So far in our analysis, we have focused on residential products, so single family and single family, exploring even a townhouse product or single family detached houses, and multifamily. We have not looked at a mixed or rather commercial product or mixed income product, just due to this particular study area, the high density of residential, and there is some industrial in the upper north and west corner, but that is something that we can make a note of and explore, especially before we provide you with our final recommendations.
I will say, just given the current makeup of the neighborhood, despite the fact that there are some industrial sites in the area, it would be very unlikely that there would be a feasible approach to commercial uses in that area if it was combined with a multifamily or single family product on that site, just given the trouble with leasing space in that area, because there's no retail opportunity right now, given that it is pretty far. I mean, yes, it is close to downtown, but because it is still disconnected from where the heart of the retail activity is occurring, both downtown and on the highway.
Thank you.
Does your analysis of the Kesler Mill site include the environmental conditions, or does it just include the opportunity for housing? I mean, are you factoring in that as part of the equation?
Thank you. So we are just focusing on the demand for housing. We are not looking at the environmental issues in this phase of our analysis.
Okay. But it would factor into our feasibility analysis for whether we think that so we'll be building a redevelopment budget for the site, and we would include an estimate for what we think is going to be needed to clean up that site. And then we know that that's a cost right now that the city's been granted from EPA, but we'll still build that into the budget and making some conservative assumptions about cleaning up that site.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question also. As you've been going through your analyses of what this site can look like, I heard you speak about speaking with staff and some of the other data that you've been gathering. Did you have an opportunity to include community members who actually live close to the site that's being developed over at Kesler Mill and also the Civic Center?
So thank you. So we have not been able to conduct the community engagement for the Kesler Mill site yet. So as part of our phase one, this is taking the high level approach to see if a project would indeed be feasible on the site. If Salisbury brought us back on for phase two, that's where we would coordinate with staff to conduct those community meetings.
Yeah, just to add to that, that was a good answer. I think that what I said before is that this market analysis is kind of one ingredient. Obviously, another ingredient is community engagement and input, and we'll take both of those into consideration when forming an RFP for the site.
Well, thank you. If there are no further questions.
I have one question.
Sorry.
When you're looking at the Kesler, the Civic Center site,
okay,
and it says hospitality there. What kind of are you thinking of? Repurposing the building or tearing it down, or I mean, what's your hospitality can go everything from a McDonald's to a JW Marriott, so, or Big Boy, I guess I should be fair to say, since that was the origins of Marriott.
Right. So
what you're thinking on that?
We should be a little more specific there. It's a hotel. We're looking at the feasibility of a hotel on that site.
Tear the building down?
Well, we're actually looking at two scenarios. We're the site's quite large, and despite the fact that some of it is in a floodway, there would be the ability to construct a new building on that site, separate from the existing Civic Center. So once we get into our site analysis, which won't be in this presentation, but we are pretty close to finishing that portion of our assessment. We would be showing a scenario by which the hotel is built separately and then also built in the existing location of the Civic Center.
So back to, sorry about this cold, just started 10 minutes ago. So would that anticipate, I know there's some problems with that building, it's sinking and this and that and the other, is the thinking that we would remove the building, demolish the building and then start over, but use that as new site development, or you're not sure yet?
Yeah, I mean, that is one avenue, right? We're not, our analysis isn't quite focused on what to do with that Civic Center per se, and whether we know there's some discussion about potentially looking at new sites for a new Civic Center. And then we understand that there are challenges with the existing structure as far as what it would take to build it up to code, and there's significant costs associated with that. So we wanted to look at just the development potential of the site, leaving the existing center in place in case the city does choose to upfit it, but also consider demolishing that structure and what that would do for the site's potential.
Thank you.
I have one more question in terms of the downtown study area. When you're mentioning the office, retail, multifamily, is that specific to just one area, or it's like along the entire route of, Inner Street and Main Street through our whole municipal district?
Right. So
you would be looking at all properties that are available and analyzing what the best market use would be based on your market study.
So thank you for your question, Mayor. In our analysis, what we do is we look at the trends happening in a larger market area that we define, and we'll walk through that in the presentation. And then we relate that down to this specific study area. So we don't get as granular to identify specific addresses of where potential multifamily or retail might happen. But what we do identify is that within the study area, we identified that it could potentially demand a certain number more of units, which could be absorbed in any location that you would deem appropriate or that the market could absorb. So we don't get that as granular to the addresses, but we do sort of give you a big number, an idea of like, this is how many units you could potentially expect in your downtown over the next 5 years, or that you could support in your downtown over the next 5 years. Does that answer your question?
Yes, to some degree, but and I need to also understand, is what you've got here your projected uses, or is this what is there?
This is what is there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I would be concerned with the scattered retail. Most times retail does better when it's, more compact. So I just wondered.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's, it's interesting looking at those buildings because I own several there, and they're marked as mixed use as opposed to retail. Second floor, I guess, of one of the buildings is mixed use.
Yeah.
So
that's
I hope
why I was looking at it. It doesn't look like, I guess, on foot when you're.
Well, it's got the entire 100 block of Main Street, of South Main, is mixed use when it's the ground floor, of course, is predominantly retail, and the upper levels are predominantly vacant.
Yes. So yes, in our analysis, we pulled this data from the tax parcel data that was provided, and believe this was a coding that was within the data. So there is the potential that some of these locations, the upper stories may be vacant, but they were coded as mixed use based on perhaps the potential that there could be a residence or an office in that upper story.
So do you all actually do any on foot analysis of what's there? Not just, okay. So you do.
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
Yes. I will say that for downtown Salisbury specific, our timing was very convenient with the pandemic. And so most of this data that we have here is utilizing Google Street View and data which we were provided with just as we were in the thick of just the new normal of the pandemic. But yes, typically our process does include going, walking the streets and doing that analysis.
So you plan on doing that before the end of this project?
That is a conversation that we've been having, yes.
We certainly can.
Yes.
I think that would be very important. Just looking at that map and kind of having walked our downtown, that we probably need to do a little bit more footwork, on the ground work, I guess is what you would call it. Okay, thank you.
Shows the park is retail, doesn't it? I mean, whoops. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm.
They have a lot to get through tonight, so just want to keep that in mind.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So I'm going to dive into the office analysis that we've conducted. So we start with the market area, as I've mentioned, and for the office analysis, we looked at Rowan County. The market area is defined typically through CoStar or other programs that we utilize, but it helps give us an idea to understand what's happening as far as trends with businesses and employees and vacancy and rents. And so in the Salisbury office market, there's 1,200 total businesses, and this again is Rowan County. We're looking at 7,300 total employees. There's about roughly 900 square feet of office space, Class B space. And across that space, we're seeing a 3% vacancy rate. And we're seeing median rents at $15.21. A couple things to note. 49% of the county's office-prone businesses are located within the city of Salisbury, and that 61% of the county's office workers are employed within the city of Salisbury. So Salisbury City itself is a hub of sorts for a lot of office-prone industry in this market area. And so when we look at the market, we look at the trends over the past decade, we find that there's been slow new office delivery in Rowan County. So there was some activity in 2014, considerable activity then, but since there hasn't really been any new office delivery or any new significant office delivery. Additionally, what we found is that vacancy and rents have decreased over time. Now, this is interesting to note because typically if you see vacancy decrease, then that might indicate that rents should be increasing, but we're seeing both decreasing over time, which for us is suggest aging office inventory. So not only is new office being built, but the current office supply is aging and therefore not able to command the higher rents that you might see in a newer product. So when we look at office demand over the next 5 years, we calculate demand looking at what we consider a stabilized vacancy rate. So the current vacancy rate in the office market is 3%. Typically, a stabilized vacancy rate is closer to 7%. And so when we do our analysis, we show that there's a demand of around 40,000 square feet at a stabilized vacancy rate. And then when we calculate projected new demand, we come up with a demand for office in the entire market area, so in entire Rowan County. And then we apply what's called a capture rate, which is just based on historical data of how much office Salisbury would capture in the larger market area. And we find that the total office demand in Salisbury and specifically downtown would be 36,000 to 47,000 square feet. Now, one thing to note is that there are some current existing large vacant office buildings in downtown. We know the former Wells Fargo building and the Salisbury Post building, Salisbury Post being mostly office, but also a mix of other uses. And so even though there is this office demand in downtown, these two large office buildings have the potential to absorb that demand, effectively rendering sort of this demand as negligible. And so when we talk about this, you have these large vacant buildings, but then there's also COVID. And so a couple things that we've seen sublease space increase over 30% from same time last year. Leasing has dropped 56%. Remote working and video conferencing has also driven a lack of demand for office space that we're seeing. And we're finding that businesses that might return to offices will operate at lower office worker density. We're seeing these trends of just pulling from different areas that older and cheaper space may not be as attractive to tenants who don't want to sacrifice health and safety standards. However, smaller office buildings may be more attractive to tenants because of the potential for less interaction and less needs for higher touch areas. And so when we run our analysis based on COVID impacts on the office market, and we base this analysis from a program we use called CoStar, and they provide different projections. A worst case scenario would equate to a 50 to 60% reduction in office space demanded in Salisbury over the next 5 years. So we find that currently there is some demand for office, but the current vacant buildings in downtown may potentially absorb that demand. And then on top of that, we find that in a worst case scenario with COVID, it would also significantly reduce the demand for office. So based on our analysis, we find that office is not as strongly demanded in your downtown. And so just to summarize, low vacancy and rent suggest older office product in the market. Potential demand is 36 to 47,000 over the next 5 years. However, the recent vacancy coupled with low rents may make it difficult to develop new office in downtown. And then there's the uncertainty that surrounds the impacts of COVID-19 on future office demand. And so with that, I will pause for a moment.
Yeah, you might get a question.
Okay. I'll move on to retail. Yes, okay.
Anybody have a question or a comment?
I would just comment that the Salisbury Post building, which is 56,000 square feet, it's only about 20,000 square feet that's really office space, or 20, maybe 30, but half that building is the
distribution.
Is, it's got all their printing equipment in it. It's going to cost them 150 to 200,000 just to get the printing equipment out. And there's some thought that the easier way to do is to tear the building down to get the equipment out. So I've been involved with those people pretty good bit. And so it could be that 56,000 square feet. It's a little overstated, but we've got tremendous amount of upstairs spaces represented by your mixed use stuff that has not been developed. One of the problems I personally know of downtown developing upstairs is how do you get to it? There are stairs or lack of stairs or elevators at the front end of the buildings. They're in the middle of the buildings, at the back of the buildings, and access is very, very difficult in a lot of those upstairs, those so-called mixed use spaces. And you'll get that if you walk through the city with somebody knowledgeable about the individual buildings.
Yeah, we see that, and we're very aware. And I don't want you to think that we haven't been in downtown Salisbury. We've been there many times pre-COVID. But it's something that comes up in a lot of communities is how to program these second floors when a lot of times you need to put an elevator in, and the cost of putting an elevator in ends up being one of the major costs, and sort of restricts your ability to program that space from a feasibility standpoint. And I hear your point about the post building as well. I mean, it's being listed as pure office space of 56,000, but we agree that likely half of that space would not really be suitable for office space. But even when you trim that down in half, we are seeing most of the demand over the next 5 years likely being absorbed with that newly vacant space with the post building and the bank building, which again isn't a bad thing. Those are buildings that can easily be adaptively reused, and we know that there was interest in the bank building, and there will likely be interest in the post building with that expected demand over the next 5 years. It just means that there's likely not to be new development, new buildings with what we expect from a demand standpoint.
I'd like to ask one other question, which is, and I know we're time crunched here, but we every 20 years or 40 years or thereabouts, we talk about a parking deck. And there's always discussion that maybe the highest and best use of the Wells Fargo buildings to knock it down, build a parking deck there, if that's feasible. Is that, and the parking deck also makes the development of some of the upstairs of these buildings for residential use, such as the Empire Hotel and a couple of buildings directly, touching, across the street from Wells Fargo building. Is that in your mix, so to speak?
So that is part of our next phase when we do our site analysis, and I can tell you a little sneak peek. We already have been looking at a potential parking deck on that site, sort of talking about the post building and the bank building and what it would look like from a standpoint of putting a deck in that area. So that is something that will come in our next presentation to you all. Whether you want to see a deck or not, it's something that we're going to show you just to show you how it would fit and what it would do to that site.
And you would still wrap the corner and the street face with retail or housing or something, not to
Sure.
just.
I mean, that would be you all's decision, right? I mean, in your downtown, absolutely, we would never recommend a deck to be exposed right on Main Street with your sort of what you've already have created there in downtown Salisbury. So, often what you find is when decks are put in communities like Salisbury, they have retail lining the front. They can even be wrapped with residential so that you can't even tell the deck's there. Of course, that adds costs to the project, but that is something we see in a lot of these communities.
Okay, thank you. And do you have more?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So I'm going to keep us moving. Thank you. So retail. So the retail trade area was defined by a 20-minute drive time from downtown Salisbury. It avoids the High Point and Concord markets. And again, we're wanting to identify the area in which we believe the most downtown Salisbury would attract the most of its or majority of its customers, excuse me. So there's a daytime population of 166,000 in this drive time. And also within this drive time, there's 7.5 million square feet of retail space. The vacancy rate is also 3%. Based on our CoStar analysis. And we see that average rents in this trade area are close to $15 per square foot, $14.71. And we found in our analysis that most of this is actually driven by highway retail, which we will talk a little bit more about in the coming slide. So the main takeaways with the retail market is that there's declining vacancy and there is some modest rent growth happening. But most of that growth happened since 2018. And so that it's been about 5% when adjusted for inflation. When we look at what's in the pipeline, meaning what's under construction or what's being proposed, we see that there is about 54,000 square feet of total retail coming down the pipeline over the next 5 years. And a big portion of that is actually the Empire Hotel, adding close to 29,000 square feet of retail space in your downtown. And so when we look at the demand for new retail in downtown Salisbury, taking into consideration what the demand would be at a stabilized vacancy rate and taking into consideration projected new demand and demand in the market area, we find that due to specifically for downtown Salisbury, that the demand for new retail is 4,500 to 7,200 roughly square feet over the next 5 years. We find that this is largely in part due to the large project potentially coming online, the Empire Hotel, and the amount of square footage that that would bring. And so that's why these numbers appear a little lower. And so
quick question about that. Would more residential in the downtown drive more retail square footage need?
So thank you. Great question. So yeah, when we do this analysis, we do factor in new household demand in our calculations. And so it is factoring in some household growth that's projected over the next 5 years and translates to what that would look like in downtown Salisbury. And so that's also being factored in here.
Thank you.
And so when we look at COVID-19 impact on retail, we find that retail was hit pretty hard by this pandemic. Visits fell by 50% in April. They've plateaued at 25% in recent months, with accommodation and food services being the most affected businesses. And even in the city of Salisbury, as of July 2020, 52 loans from the Paycheck Protection Program were distributed. And some of the restaurants included Team Carolinas. I believe they own a couple chain restaurants. And so, but these here, they represent different jobs and how COVID has impacted these particular businesses. And when we look at the county as a whole, based on our CoStar analysis, the county is projecting a 4% reduction in downtown supportable sales. So these are all things just to keep in mind, as even with this demand on retail, COVID is adding, again, some uncertainty. And so just to summarize, though vacancy has declined since 2010, rent growth has been modest over that same time period. We find that the Empire Hotel will have a significant impact on retail demand in the trade area, adding 28,000 square feet of retail space. And we find that potential retail demand in downtown Salisbury is 4,500 to 7,200 square feet over the next 5 years. However, I didn't touch on this earlier, but the average rents in the market are close to $15 per square foot for retail. A lot of that is driven by highway retail, whereas in downtown, the rents are closer to, on average, $12.50, and that these rents are lower compared to that highway product, and thus may pose a challenge for new development in downtown. And then again, the county is projecting a 4% reduction in downtown supportable sales. So what I'll do is I'll move on to multifamily, and then I'll pause after that, because I feel like we're going to get some good questions on this one as well. So the multifamily market area, again, our market areas are defined by the location geographically that we believe if there were a new product in downtown Salisbury, it could attract people from this area. And so we actually looked at combining Rowan, Davidson, and Davie counties. So again, believing that if Salisbury developed a new multifamily product, it could potentially attract individuals from those areas. So this market area has a population of 363,000 individuals, a median household income of $50,000. There are over 2,800 units, Class B. The vacancy rate is 5%, and the average asking rent is 85 cents per square foot, as compared to $1.21 in downtown Salisbury. And I'll touch on that a little more later. So we find that multifamily delivery in the market area has been modest, and that the newer product that has come online has been predominantly affordable or income restricted. So when we look at multifamily market demand, we look at the projected households, and then we identify what we call qualified renter households, which are households earning $47,000 to $200,000 based on our analysis. And we find that in the market area, there's opportunity for 750 to 800 new multifamily units in the market area. And when we break that down for the city of Salisbury, that equates to 400 to 575 new units over the next 5 years. And for downtown, approximately 125 new units over the next 5 years. Now, what's important to note is that for downtown specifically, these new units are in addition to the units that would come online from the Empire Hotel. So we're saying 125 in addition to the 62, give or take, units that the Empire Hotel will bring.
And quick question, are we going to see, okay, I was going to ask about how much the footage would be for some of that housing.
Okay.
Square foot.
Yes. So we are finding that downtown multifamily is commanding higher rents and on average $1.21 per square foot. And we'll find, though, that the Empire Hotel is really going to be an important demonstration project for rents in downtown, as well as absorption. Because of the amount of residential product it will be bringing, it will be important to watch just how the market responds to these units coming online. I have not yet seen an actual dollar per square foot amount listed for these apartments. So we would just watch that. But at least based on what we find in our analysis, downtown apartments are commanding around an average of $1.21 per square foot.
Will there be some recommendations on how we as a city can participate in helping to keep some downtown housing affordable?
So that is a great question. Thank you. Yes, we can definitely provide those recommendations when we provide our final recommendations. So yes, we've been focusing on market rate product in our analysis because we understand that Salisbury has done some extensive affordable analysis. But yes, we can definitely provide those recommendations.
I'll add that, we're not going over our community scan as part of this presentation because we'd be here all night, but there is some data in there. It might even be included in the appendix here. Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong, that includes sort of where your affordability needs are. DFI does a whole separate affordable housing needs assessment when our clients want us to, and that's not a part of this scope, but so we won't get too detailed, but we can certainly provide some recommendations on how to keep units affordable in downtown.
Thank you. So I'll walk through this fairly quickly. High level takeaway is that multifamily, the story is still unfolding on the impact of COVID on this specific sector of the market. 16% of North Carolina renters didn't pay rent in July, with an additional 7% deferring rent. We're not sure what the federal eviction moratorium and the lack of the rentals assistance program, as well as the expiration of the expanded federal unemployment benefits, will have on the multifamily market. And so again, these are things that developers, of course, will be watching, but things that we will be watching and keeping in mind.
You go back to that last bullet point, please.
Yes, sorry. I apologize for that. Yes, the severe downside projections are showing a 6.5% vacancy rate, which is actually closer to a stabilized vacancy rate. So when we do our analysis, as I've mentioned in previous analyses, we look at what that stabilized vacancy rate is and what the demand is there. And so actually, because the severe downside is projecting a 6.5% vacancy and it is close to stabilized rate, the unit demand looks like it will be fairly comparable to the numbers that we provided you with.
And just so everybody understands, when Sonia says stabilized, that means healthy. So that means a good market. A good performing, well-performing market will have a vacancy rate of about 7%.
Yeah, and what I heard was the severe case scenario is close to a stable case scenario, so there's not a whole lot of alarm or concern.
That's right.
Correct. Okay. So just to summarize, a new product close to downtown is limited. Average rents for downtown are $1.21 per square foot, And we heard from the different individuals we spoke with that these units are staying occupied. We see potential multifamily demand for the city is 400 to 575 units over the next 5 years, with the potential demand in downtown of 125 units over the next 5 years. The Empire Hotel will test downtown absorption and rents because it will be adding 50% more product in downtown at once. And the impact of the expiration of both eviction moratorium and pandemic unemployment benefit is still to be seen.
Sounds like a crazy question, but I'm gonna try and get it in quick.
Okay.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Let me say it differently. If you had multifamily growth in downtown, does that not support retail growth? Which one comes first?
Absolutely. Typically, it's the first mover is the residential, right? So if you all are going to add another 65 units in downtown, you know what our data unfortunately is unable to capture. Yes, that is absorbing some of that expected population growth in the area, but it's not expecting the additional 65 units, which is probably equates more to about 100 people living in downtown. Generating demand for your restaurants, coffee, and for downtown the size of Salisbury. That's big. The other thing it doesn't equate for is that on that last bullet, yes, adding 50% more units to the market downtown is going to test the market. But if Empire Hotel, if they prove that they can absorb and stabilize those 65 units, that's going to send a pretty big flare out there to other developers, signaling that additional multifamily can work in downtown Salisbury. And so again, that's also not, we can't capture that in our data, but you can better believe that if, in 6 months, if those units are stabilized and occupied, then there will be additional multifamily development happening in downtown.
Yeah, so let me restate what I heard. If we were going to overinvest in one side or the other, the multifamily might be a place where we would try to encourage development, because that would then have the opportunity of building retail growth as well. Am I interpreting what you said, that's at least feasible?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong in that sense. Whether it's multifamily or hospitality or even office. I mean, any of those uses are going to drive more demand, but typically your multifamily resident is going to demand more on a daily basis.
Super, thank you.
So do your numbers include our latest under construction project, which is Bankett, the one that's down on Ennis Street near the bridge that comes into our city right past Long Street? It's the first project on your left as you come into our downtown.
Yes. So we do include what we identify as pipeline projects.
Okay.
And so I can double check our data to make sure that one is included.
Okay,
But
because
yeah, we have included a number.
Construction, very, recent.
Okay.
That would be important to know as an overall.
Yeah, if it was permitted by the time we were doing our analysis, then it should be included.
Okay. I have a question, and it refers back to on your slides in the office product line. You have no Class A shown. You have everything as Class B. I have a property owner who built a new building in our downtown who just texted me and wanted to know, what is your criteria for Class A? Because this building is actually very beautiful and it's been there maybe 4 or 5 years. Might be a little bit longer, but not a lot.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And there's always a lot of confusion about what constitutes Class A, Class B. And that's a designation that's provided by our data software, CoStar. That's their interpretation. Some people like to argue that their building is in fact Class A when it's being represented as Class B. I'll say the main things that distinguish a building from being Class A as opposed to Class B are elevators, covered parking, a doorman or some sort of security at the door, other amenities in the building like a workout facility, or outside seating for lunch. Those are usually the main drivers of Class A. And then it can get into the types of finishes as well. But those are it could be age as well. So if it's a newer building and it could be misclassified, but based on what we saw in the market, we don't believe that there is a true Class A building, office building in Salisbury.
Well, yeah, I think that maybe there should be some more, on the ground investigation, because there are several buildings that I would say might classify in that range, and that would be our Gateway building, which does have an elevator. It is an older, not much older, but maybe 10 or 12 years. But it has marble floors and very, very well upfitted electronically to allow meetings to occur in there. And so is the building that I was mentioning that's maybe 4 years old. It also has an area for presentations, almost like an auditorium that people can rent, and it has very beautiful amenities. Now, obviously, doesn't have a door person, but it does have someone in both cases, those buildings have a full-time person at the desk to greet, visitors and that sort of thing. So, I think that maybe looking into that, because that would be important, I think, for our marketing, to allow business people to actually know that we do have some really newer and very well appointed product.
Sure, and we can take another look at that again. I mean, it's a designation that's given by CoStar, which does that survey. We can certainly sort of double check a few of those buildings mentioned. I know the Gateway building. I will say that we did have some conversations with local brokers, and they sort of verified our findings. But again, it is a gray area, I will say, and it can be argued.
Well, especially whenever I would think that the classifications might be a bit different if you're talking about a Charlotte city center or, a smaller town. I think you would classify them very differently because, you're not talking about a high rise, with a bank of elevators that, is 40 stories high. But, so I don't know. And I guess I should be arguing with CoStar, and we're members of them with our property. So.
Well, you do make a good point. I mean, CoStar does this work across they do in tier 1 markets, and they do it in tier 3 markets. So I mean, it is, they're not always accurate. And if you did it just at a market standpoint, if you were looking just at Salisbury comparing, then yeah, you probably would find that some of the buildings are Class A compared to the rest of the market. But the designation of Class A, Class B, we use that compared to all markets we work in. So certainly hear your point, and we can go back to that and try to make some more in-depth designations there.
I want to go back to when you were pulling your information together again and looking at square footage for businesses and how this will develop and its relativity to downtown. How does entrepreneurship and also supporting and sustaining minority businesses factor into the work that you're doing?
Thank you. So the work that we're providing is essentially laying the framework and the big picture of here's what could be, here's what's demanded, and then the specifics of how that happens. We don't dive into that. We hand this to you on a platter to then identify sort of how you want that to move forward and how you want to use this information.
Well, I will say, so this is just a snapshot of the work we're doing. If we were doing a full pre-development process, which would be sort of the next phase, and once we identify a couple of opportunity sites in downtown, and if the city says this is great, we think there's a project here, we want to engage DFI further to go out and actually find a development partner, then we would work with you all to put together a solicitation, an RFP, and within that RFP, we would work in those types of minority participation, those types of businesses you want to attract in downtown. And the RFP can be very specific, saying this is what we want. These are the types of minority participation. This is what the types of retail we want. It can be as specific as you want when we go out and talk to the development partners, so that they know what's going to be expected by council. So again, that's not in this scope. That would be sort of the next phase if you all decide to move forward.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's good to know.
Absolutely.
Hey, you can proceed. Sorry, I backed up, but
Oh,
I just got a text, so I had to answer one of our constituents.
thank you.
Yes.
No problem. So again, we've covered 3 uses. We've covered office, retail, multifamily, and the multifamily findings, keeping in mind the Kesler Mill site as well as downtown. Now, single family, this specific use, we invite you to keep the Kesler Mill site primarily in mind as we talk about this. So we looked at the same market area. So within this market area, 71% of the units that people are living in are single family. And so that includes both single family detached as well as townhouses and condos. By far, single family detached housing makes up the majority of this percentage, with townhouses and condos being a much smaller percentage. But the median household income is $51,000. 71% of the housing units in this market area are owner occupied. Now, compared to the city of Salisbury, this is high. In Salisbury, it's closer to 51%. So your owner occupied and renter occupied units are close to half and half. We find that the median home value in this area is close to $131,000. For the city of Salisbury, it is lower. It's closer to $124,000. And we find that the vacancy rate for single family product is 11.5%, so it is higher. Now, what we found in our research is that there has been slow housing production since 2010, and that over half of the housing stock was built pre-1970. So there's a lot of housing stock in this area, but specifically in Salisbury, that is aging or has already aged and is not in as great condition, and that does contribute to this vacancy rate we found. As far as home values, we've also seen little to no home value growth over the past 5 years. There's been an average of a 0.4% growth. And so these are things to keep in mind, especially when we're thinking about potentially if the Kesler Mill site would be attractive for a single family developer. Now, on the other side, or perhaps the positive side, is that there is market growth for young professionals and seniors over the next 5 years. And so additionally, we find that the new single family housing that's being developed, the average asking price is close to $200,000, and that this is happening around the city of Salisbury. So there is some activity happening. And so when we look at single family demand, again, the same projected total households of 145,000 in 2024. So that's a growth of approximately 4,000 to 5,000 households over the next 5 years. Qualified owner households in the market area. Again, these are households earning greater than or equal to 58,000. That's 8,700 households. And so we find that there is opportunity within the market area for 3,500 new single family units. And when we look at Salisbury specifically, we find that there's a demand for 700 to 800 units. And so we find in some of our conversations, there is a healthy demand for more single family housing. However, as I'll highlight in the summary, a little, actually, let me just move to that bullet point. The lower median household income in Salisbury and the lower home values may make new development or attracting new development for single family challenging in Salisbury. Just looking at construction costs and the margins, it would be tight. So these are things that we would keep in mind. However, we'll watch the new single family developments because they are on the higher end. One of the products is asking around 250,000. And so that it'll just be important to watch those. And then there's population growth happening in your young professionals and seniors. So we believe that there is potential demand for single family and I guess more than potential, a fair amount of demand. But sort of our COVID consideration is single family has proven resilient during the pandemic. However, uncertainty still exists as sales are starting to slow and unemployment rates are still pretty high. So again, we're in this interesting time of we're still waiting to see how the pandemic will impact these various different sectors, but this is the data that we are seeing right now. And so this is our last use, hospitality. I know we've covered a lot. And so I'm actually going to toss it over to Rory. He's going to share more about the hospitality use in Salisbury.
Hey, Sonia and Roy, before you go, I have a quick question on that last bullet point there about you were talking about how it's going to be tight for some single families based off their median household income in Salisbury to the market area. Do you have demographics attached to that, or will we see that in the final recommendation and when we get all that kind of stuff?
You will most definitely see that in the final report and recommendations. We can segment that down. Yes.
Okay, because I just know we might need to look at, is this is it an age line like you're showing there? Is that the majority of that, or are we talking about a race line or a gender
Correct.
line? I would just like to see kind of our approach to that. Okay, thank you.
Good question. All right, so we will move into hospitality, and first I want to commend you all. You all are asking some fantastic questions. We had been told that you all really wanted to see the entire data picture, and so we were going to condense this, but we were told that you all would want to see everything. So commend you all for asking great questions. It's always, we get some councils that just gloss over this information, so it's great to be listened to. So we looked at the hotels that make up the Salisbury market. Essentially, there are about 10 hotels sort of within that 5-mile radius of downtown Salisbury. We surveyed 6, focusing on mid-scale and upscale brands that you can see here that are all currently clustered along 85. We're talking about the whole market is about 1,000 rooms, but we're about 930, I think. But we're looking at specifically 530 rooms that make up the 6 surveyed. The hotels that we surveyed have an current occupancy rate of 74%. This was pre-COVID when we got our data from Smith Travel Report. So this was back through February. That 74 is very healthy, obviously pre-COVID, but it's very healthy compared to the rest of the state, which you'll see in a second. And we're also, these hotels are showing an average daily rate, so what people were paying for the rooms, of about $108, again, pre-COVID. I mentioned Smith Travel Reports. Some of you may be familiar with what these are, but this is what all hotel operators are required to report to. So they report their average daily rates, they report their occupancy rates, and they also report what's known as RevPAR, their revenue per available room, which is essentially just the average daily rate multiplied times the occupancy rate. And they report this to a company called Smith Travel Report, which then puts together these reports for people like us, for developers, as sort of a starting place to understand the market. Any developer that is going to be interested in developing a hotel in Salisbury is going to start with a Smith Travel Report to essentially get a lay of the land, to identify how these performance metrics are comparing to comparable communities to the rest of the state. What we're not able to zero in on is details for a single hotel. So because hotels are willing to report their metrics, they know that they're not going to be sharing any trade secrets or anything, because it is an average. You see basically an average of these hotels surveyed, of these 6 hotels. They do not give you individual data for each hotel. So we're really just, it also doesn't show any demand trends, of course. So we use those historical data to predict where we're headed. As mentioned, Salisbury, the market is performing extremely well compared to the rest of the state. What we're showing here are those 3 metrics: the average daily rate, or ADR, the occupancy, and the revenue per available room. What's interesting to note here also is that you all may be aware that you added a new hotel at the end of 2016, as well as 2018, and in both instances, you were able to absorb those new rooms, and the ADR and the occupancy still was able to come back and stay at a very healthy rate. So you can see it particularly, and if you look at the occupancy graph there in 2017, it took a dip, but that is a result of adding those 95 rooms at the end of 2016. But it's important to see that the market rebounded quite strongly and absorbed those additional rooms. When we try to assess the health of the market, we also look at year-round occupancy. If you look at 2019, you'll see here that the Salisbury market really performed quite well throughout the year, which is pretty unique. If you think about markets that are closer to the coast or out west, you're going to see a lot of dips. Here, you're not seeing too many significant dips, and what you're really seeing, which is unique, is sort of these strong occupancy levels going into the fall, October, November, even December, being close to 60% is impressive, when a lot of people are not doing a whole lot of traveling up until the Christmas time, and even then aren't really staying in too many hotels. And so, again, a part of this, as you all know, is the Polar Express. There are 160,000 people that come every year to the area for that, and a lot of them are staying overnight, and so that is quite a occupancy generator there. Zeroing in not only on sort of the year-round sustained demand, but also looking at the weekday occupancy. This is, again, something that hotel developers look at. They want to know who's going to be staying in their hotel Monday through Friday, or really Monday through Thursday. It's great to see that you all have tremendous occupancy throughout the week, in particular Tuesday and Wednesday. So what that means is that you've got quite a bit of corporate demand. People traveling along 85, other businesses booking rooms throughout the area. So again, very healthy weekday occupancy is a very strong indicator of a healthy market. So when we talk about the potential for downtown demand and the feasibility of putting a hotel in downtown in a market like Salisbury, we look at those indicators that we just discussed. You've got sustained year-round and midweek occupancy, which is fantastic. Again, one of the first things that a developer is going to look at. You want to have proximity to restaurants, nightlife, walkability. Again, that's something that is going to distinguish the downtown hotel from what you have already along the highway. People that like to stay in downtown don't want to get back in the car. They want to be able to walk to restaurants, nightlife. They want to have that walkability, which downtown already has. Proximity to convention and civic center or performing arts centers is also a big indicator for potential demand. You all obviously have some of those smaller performing arts centers. We're right now trying to gather a little bit more information there on that front to see where those visitors are coming from. I don't expect them to be traveling too far or really be overnight visitors, but there is obviously some conversation about potentially a new civic center, and something like that in downtown would certainly be a strong generator for additional occupancy in the downtown area, and set that product aside from the highway product. Unique attractions. Downtown has no shortage of unique attractions already. It's got that sort of feel, that historic feel that a lot of people are attracted to. And we think that there are opportunities with existing buildings to create sort of that unique attraction in itself, to have a hotel, a boutique hotel, occupy one of those existing buildings, which you see happen a lot in communities like Salisbury that have a great stock of historic buildings. And what you see is that hotel becomes an attraction within itself, because it is distinguished from your typical highway cookie cutter product. And then its ability to still compete with that existing highway product. Yes, it's a very different product being in downtown, but the ability to pull from that existing product, from that Hampton Inn, from that Home True Suites right down the street, and still not add any additional time to one's trip. If they're stopping there for the night, it's great. So we see a tremendous opportunity for a downtown product to pull from the existing supply along the highway due to its unique proximity to the highway, which is unique for sort of a downtown like Salisbury. The biggest question mark for downtown feasibility from a hotel standpoint is the ability to generate a premium average daily rate, so that ADR. When you're building a hotel downtown, you're looking at 20-30% increase in construction costs, and that's really or development costs. And that main reason is land costs in downtown are significantly more than they would be closer to the highway. You've got typically parking complications, constraints, which force you to either build a deck or utilize an existing deck, so you're leasing parking. So at the end of the day, your costs to develop a hotel in downtown are significantly higher than what it is to build a hotel by the highway. And so in order to account for those increased development costs, you've got to generate a significant premium in your rates, usually about 25 to 30% above what that highway product is generating. I did want to talk a little bit about a community that we see as a comparable community to Salisbury, Florence, South Carolina. Some of you all may be familiar with it. It's about an hour east of Columbia, just off of I-95. And when I say just off, it is really about the same proximity, maybe a little bit more proximity to I-95 that Salisbury is to 85. 38,000 population. And a similar situation up until about 7 years ago, the 100% of the hotel product was clustered just off of I-95. Today, they've got two successful products in downtown. You're looking to the right there, you see the Hotel Florence, which was a historic rehab boutique hotel done in 2013. And then you've got the Hyatt Place downtown, which was built a year ago. Both of these products are doing very well pre-COVID, but they are generating currently that 30% premium above what their neighboring products doing along the highway. So they were able to achieve that premium needed in order to make the cost of development make sense. So as you all probably are well aware, the hospitality industry has been hit particularly hard from COVID. Right now, the CBRE is projecting occupancy about 42.6% annually, which, as you saw across North Carolina, you're typically at 65%. Across the nation, you're closer to about 67, 68%. So significant decrease in occupancy this year, as well as a significant decline in RevPAR. I will note that through July, the Salisbury market, we were able to get some of this data from James over at TDA. The market is at 51% occupancy, so definitely above where some other markets are today in response to COVID. So that's a very positive indicator there. But you'll see that the current reduction in RevPAR is in line with what CBRE is projecting across the market. There is a pretty slow rise in demand, so that 51% occupancy has been sort of hovering there since for the last 2 to 3 months. So it's not really seeing any additional upward momentum for the time being. And that's really as a result of the fact that the virus is still spreading and there's really no timeline for a vaccine. So as of right now, we're not seeing the return to corporate travel. We're not seeing the return to tourism. And it's probably going to be, another 12 to 18 months before we really see people get comfortable making those decisions. One thing to note is that some of your older supply, which you do have some along the highway, the supply that is likely highly levered may not survive the recession. This is being talked about by a lot of hotel operators right now, that they're estimating that anywhere from 20 to 30% of supply in markets may not make it. So what that means is that it's pretty grim, but at the same time, there could be some opportunity for new hotels to enter these markets. When you talk about a market like Salisbury, if they were to lose 200 to 300 rooms, given where occupancy levels were pre-COVID, you would absolutely expect there to be additional demand as a result of some of those older products shutting down. So in conclusion, with the hospitality market, we do currently see 100% of the market clustered along I-85. We think that area is pretty well saturated. We know that there was discussions about a new product coming online near there as well. So we think that the market from a purely hotel, from a clustered around the highway standpoint is pretty saturated. We are seeing very strong sustained year-round occupancy as well as midweek demand, which is extremely positive to see. And we have seen downtown hotels in comparable markets demonstrate that having that location in downtown can generate a significant premium above highway products, which again is needed in order to make the development work from a feasibility standpoint. But the increased cost of downtown hotels, coupled with what we're seeing in the improving market, would likely necessitate public participation. So I don't want to send a message that a developer is going to look at these indicators and say, okay, we're in, we can do a hotel downtown. I mean, there would be a first mover challenge, and anyone looking to take that risk in order to try to generate that premium and rate is likely going to request public participation. There was public participation for those projects in Florence, South Carolina. So I don't want to give the sort of a message that there wouldn't be an expectation of public participation to take a risk on a downtown hotel.
You're not telling us anything we don't already know in that case.
Didn't think so. Just wanted to make sure.
And you mentioned speaking to our convention and tourism authority, James Meacham. He did share with the board last week in a meeting that there is some still sustained interest from hoteliers in our market. Great. Some of them have already made a substantial investment in property. So they're not ready yet, but it always takes, 2 to 3 years to actually be completed. So, they're starting to get into the look and see.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I mean, and that, I think that is in line with what we're hearing from a lot of hotel operators in their expectation that some of the products, unfortunately, won't make it through the recession. And so I think people that have the reserves, and people that can weather the storm and we're already interested in a market like Salisbury are probably thinking the same thing, or saying, you know what, this could be a market that today is in 930 rooms, but 2 years from now might be 700 rooms. And there's a tremendous opportunity there when you look at the 74% occupancy and the ADR that was being generated pre-COVID.
What I can add from my years in the hotel industry, I was director of research, which gave me access for GMAC, which gave me a lot of access to all that STAR information, is that when you look on a national level, when occupancy rates started dipping below 64, 63%, you started seeing demand go up because there are 2 or 3 million hotel rooms in America. But that's kind of the break-even point. So when we're looking at a 74% occupancy rate, if you take COVID away, that makes us a prime market for expansion because you don't see 74% occupancy rates. And the other thing that's healthy about our situation, again, post-COVID, whenever that happens, is that a lot of hotels have 2 weeks. They have this 80% occupancy, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they have 30 and 40% occupancy rates, which averages out to 63 or 4%. The fact that that Salisbury's been maintaining this 74% and doesn't have those big dips, even Sunday on your chart was 64%. It looked to me 64, 65, and that's incredible. So on the other side of this, I think there will be demand out there for new rooms. Question, and we did have a survey done, Brian will remember this, on the Empire Hotel years ago, and back then Salisbury's occupancy rate was 56%, and they said, no, you can't. It was 62 or 3%. And they said, Salisbury, if you bring that into the market, it'll drop it to 56%. The developer will go broke, and proved not to be true. So
I think we have captured the tourism part of it. I think the tourism board has done an amazing job over the years, really getting those extra weekend because of all of the wonderful tourism types of things we have here with the North Carolina Transportation Museum, the farms, the wineries, and they put together packages. So I think that's why you're seeing those high occupancies over weekend travel,
They've done a great job.
Yeah, they really have.
And not to keep you all any longer, I don't suppose, but what has been the impact of VRBOs and Airbnbs in your findings when you're looking at hospitality? How does that play into this?
Yeah, it certainly plays into it. I mean, I'll say that, that 74, the 74%, I mean, that's not accounting for Airbnb or VRBO. I mean, obviously that none of the indicators that we're talking about include those types of lodging. I don't, to be honest, I don't have a sense for how much that has increased in a market like Salisbury. I predict that it probably hasn't had much of an impact at all on the people that are staying in your hotels. I know you all have a couple of bed and breakfasts downtown, so they would be the ones to really zero in on. And if we were to continue working with you all on this and going after and trying to attract a private developer, and there was an interest in a boutique hotel, I think that would be something worth exploring. Is there a risk of that sector increasing over time and having an impact on feasibility of boutique product? But we really haven't explored that too much in this market. But of course, globally, that is having a tremendous impact on your peak tourism destinations.
Yeah, I think that if you just bothered to go look, you'd be surprised at what you see out there for here. So I think it's interesting that we've maintained pre-COVID a good occupancy rate, better than the rest of the state, and have increased that as well. So something's happening good. We just got to get it. Thank you.
You're right, Tamara. We actually heard that there's probably 11 to 13% that of rooms in Airbnbs and other kinds of B&Bs that and other smaller hotels that do not subscribe to the Smith and do not give them the data. So I would say that we are really a destination. It doesn't include things like the Tree House in China Grove that's booked solid because it's a really unique property. So, you know, I think we're a location in demand.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions on hotels before we wrap it up?
Anything else, council? And thank you so much for all your questions. And thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, well, I think we got a couple more slides that Sonia wanted to touch on just to wrap up about next steps.
Yes, yes, just a couple more items. Just wanted to put this analysis in the context of the larger work that we're performing. So we've provided you with our market analysis findings to date. Of course, we will be providing you with the final with the market analysis report. And so we've been making note of the questions and the comments that have taken place during this presentation, and we'll be sure to answer those and make sure that they're addressed in that final report, as well as updates made for the final recommendations. And from here, we're going to be working on a site analysis where for downtown specifically, we're going to be identifying sites that present redevelopment opportunity, catalytic redevelopment opportunity. And then for the Civic Center and Kesler Mill sites, we're going to show pretty much some ideas, some concepts of from our in-house landscape architect and designer of what could potentially happen on those sites, just to continue the conversation of the possibilities for those. And then we'll provide our final recommendations, hopefully in the next couple months. And that's everything for today.
Thank you so much. Council, do you have anything else that you'd like to comment on or questions?
Just thank you very much for your thoroughness. This has been a really good presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you all. Again, I want to repeat that you all's questions are fantastic. And again, we appreciate you all being so attentive. We do a lot of presentations where they don't want to see all of this and they just want to skim over it. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Hannah, do you have anything else for council?
I do not. Just thank you to Rory and Sonia for all their work.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for all your help, Hannah.
Okay, we look forward to the next presentation. Okay, we will move on to item 10 on the agenda.
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I wonder if I could ask for a 5-minute recess.
Yes. Do we need a motion on that, council, or do we want to do a roll call, or just by, or do we want to just do it by acclamation?
Mayor, you can declare it. You have the authority.
All right. I will declare a 5-minute break for everyone. Thank you.
Can't hear you, Karen.
Karen, you're on mute.
No, I'm trying to get it off. Oh, I'm
Hear
not.
you.
No.
Can you now?
You can hear. Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Mr. Post is back. So we are now at item number 10 on our agenda. Council to consider Land Development Ordinance Text Amendment TA-01-2020 to amend Chapter 15 regarding first-class mail notification for public or evidentiary hearings. And our presenter tonight is Senior Planner Catherine Garner. Catherine, you're up. Thank
Good
you.
evening,
Hi,
Mayor
Catherine.
and Council. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. Let's see. This is just a brief run through of what we went through at the August 18th meeting where you held your public hearing. So tonight you will be able to take action. Just a quick reminder of what the proposed text amendment is. This would be to Chapter 15 of the Land Development Ordinance. It would reduce the first-class mailed notifications from 500 feet for all public hearings to 250 feet of the parcels in question for legislative hearings, and then 100 feet of the parcels in question for quasi-judicial hearings, such as the Historic Preservation Commission and the Board of Adjustment. It also includes a new chart to be added to Section 15.3 that clearly outlines what is already in place, but just makes it quick and easy to take a look at it when staff is determining what hearings or what notice needs to be done per hearing. That's all I have for you.
Hey, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Catherine? I think this is the second time we've seen this. We could not vote the first time because we were in electronic mode of meeting. So tonight we can do that. So Council, what is your pleasure?
Catherine, did you get any feedback at all from the community relative to this change?
I got several requests from Historic Preservation Commission applicants that they go ahead and use this fee schedule or this reduction for the upcoming meeting. So they're already in favor of it. We did not hear anybody in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
City hereby finds and determines that adoption of an ordinance to amend the land development ordinance of the city of Salisbury as underlined or stricken herein is reasonable in the public interest and not inconsistent with the Vision 2020 comprehensive plan herein because there is no specific objections or continuance of adopted goals or policy. Therefore, I make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 15 development process of the Land Development Ordinance of the City of Salisbury, North Carolina, related to first-class mail notification for public or evidentiary hearings.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. I will, if there's no further discussion or questions, I will call the question as a roll call. So Brian, since you made it, I'll give you first chance.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Tamara Sheffield.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
Al Hagan,
Aye.
Karen Alexander. Aye. Okay, it passes. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 11, council to consider adopting a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Pilot Travel Centers, LLC, for the Peeler Road Water Main Project. Our presenter today is Assistant Utilities Director, Jason Wilson. So Jason, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We were approached, SRU was last year by the Pilot Travel Center as well as the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Public Water Supply section about the possibility of the truck stop on Peeler Road connecting to our public water supply. That would involve an extension, which I'm sharing my screen with you now to show just a map of where that is located. It is actually here where we have the yellow and the red hatching along Peeler Road near the I-85 interchange. So we're looking at around 3,350 linear feet of extending water line to serve this parcel, which is not currently in the city limits. So we have been working on the design and are currently having that permitted. And so we are bringing to you a draft agreement today between the Pilot Travel Center, which is the developer, the property owner, as well as the city to participate in a 50-50 cost share to extend water. This would also open up some other parcels that could connect to water, which you see is the proposed water, the hatched blue line along Peeler Road. If you also notice all the green dots, those are manholes on sewer lines. And so a lot of this sewer was a joint project with Rowan County about 10 years ago to extend sewer down the Town Creek corridor. So this property already connects to that via a private lift station and force main. So this is an exciting project for SRU and the city as well. If you notice the current city limits and the ETJ for the city of Salisbury, one of the conditions of this agreement would be for the developer and the property owner to petition the city for voluntary annexation.
So will that be done simultaneously to our approval of getting the water?
We will be coming back to you. So they are required as part of the agreement to petition, I believe it may be within 90 days, as well as pay their portion of the project cost estimate, which is just under $600,000. So they will be cost sharing in almost $300,000 of the project estimate based on our plan. And we'll also be coming back to you for a capital project ordinance once we get that money.
Okay, very good. That's exciting. It's a lot of revenue.
So what we're asking for today is just authorizing execution of this agreement with Pilot and the landowner.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for Jason Wilson?
And my only question was about the annexation. He's already answered it. So I wanted to make sure that was part of what we were doing. So good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And also the cost sharing for it, especially when we get other property nearby that now will have water, access to water, other parcels. It's really a win-win. So do I hear a motion from council if there's no other questions for Mr. Wilson?
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the City of Salisbury Pilot Travel Centers, LLC, and PFJ Southeast, LLC for a water line extension along Peeler Road.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Post. David, I will ask you the question. Roll call. So, all right. Brian Miller.
Aye.
Al Huggins.
Aye.
Tamara Sheffield.
Aye.
And Karen Alexander. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay. So we are now at number 12, council to consider appointments to the Greenway, Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. The presenter tonight is Parks and Rec's Director, Nick Aceves. You're up, Nick.
Good evening, everybody. Real quick, good evening, Mayor and Council. Real quick, would like to request appointments to the new Greenway Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. The previous members need to be reappointed because it's a new board, and all the applicants that did apply were able to get a spot on the new board. So you can do them, appoint them one by one or as presented to you.
What is council's pleasure? Nick says he's already asked them. We had the same number of board seats available as applicants, and they're all on there. So do you want to do it as a full board? But we would need to see the names of them if you have that, please.
It's in our packet. It's Edward Hurst, Amy Smith, Lisa Ware, Carol Massey, Sashi Sabera, John Weir, Sharon Earnhardt, Dylan Horn, Sean Myers, Andrew Pittner, and Mary Rosser.
Okay.
And I would make a motion to accept all of them.
Okay. Then if council has no objection to that, we will go with the roll call that David just gave us, and I'll call the question. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Let me do the roll call, and David already said aye. Tamara Sheffield.
Aye.
Brian Miller.
Aye.
Al Huggins.
Aye.
Karen Alexander. Aye. So we have unanimous approval. So congratulations. That's a very important committee, and we're excited that Mary brought that to our attention. So we needed to do that. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we are moving on to item number 13, City Attorney's Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything for the council tonight.
Oh, okay. And City Manager's Report.
Madam Mayor, just have one item, like Shannon Moore, to give you an update financial report.
Okay, thank you. So Shannon, you're up.
Good afternoon. Let me share my screen real quick. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes. Your title sheet. Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. I just wanted to provide you with some updates to our FY 2020 financial condition, and also a preview for some updated information for our FY 21 fiscal year. We are still currently in audit mode. So these preliminary information that I'm sharing with you for the 2020 financials are unaudited. And so they are subject to change as we get further into our audit. But I think for the most part, they're fairly solid information. And so as you're aware, the two biggest revenues we have in the general fund are our property taxes. We actually budgeted this year $20.2 million in property tax collections, and we have received through the end of the fiscal year $20.6 million, and that is at a collection rate of 97.77. And if you will recall, that is slightly below our 2019 collection rate, about 0.7% less than what we received in the previous fiscal year. And our FY21 budgeted calculation that we used was a 97% collection rate. On the sales tax side, we have 11 months received so far. Our total budget was $7.6 million, and through 11 months, we are already over budget at $7.7 million, so that's a good sign. You will notice here on the chart, we started to see an uptick in February, as we typically do. March was fairly flat as things started kind of slowing down with the COVID pandemic. And then you'll see here a dip in April for the FY20 numbers. If you'll recall, that is when the stay-at-home executive order came out. And so we started to kind of see a dip in April. But surprisingly, May was back up above where it normally has been trending in the last 2 fiscal years. So
Shannon, could I ask a question?
Yes.
When you say May, the reports are due on June 15th. So are those collections that are related that we just received notice of recently? In other words, that is the month of May as opposed to the reports from May?
Yes, this is May sales.
Okay.
These are based on the months of the sales actually incurred.
And so we just got that information the last week or so.
Correct. And in a couple of weeks, we should be getting the 12th month, which would be our June sales. And as you can see, based on the information that we have received for 11 months, we will be well over budget by the end of the fiscal year.
That's very exciting news because
yes, that is very
good.
Anecdotally, do you know what June normally looks like?
June is typically, I may have some information. June is typically, I'm trying to recall from last year. Last year, our FY19 total budget, we received $8.1 million. I think we will exceed that amount, obviously based on one more month being yet to be received in the current fiscal year. So I think we will still exceed what we received last year.
Good stuff. Thank you.
And those are our 2 largest sales. We haven't really seen any huge blips in any other revenues for the FY20 fiscal year. But again, we are kind of flushing out the numbers based on the fact that we are still in audit. And then on the Hotwire broadband lease revenues that we receive from Hotwire, we have received our 4th quarter information regarding the lease revenues and the credits to the rent based on that lease agreement. You will notice that there is another small write-off in the 4th quarter. And again, these are quarters based on when those receipts come in and in the quarter earned. So on a full year basis for this past fiscal year, our lease revenues generated around $771,000. We did have bad debt write-offs, and then they have their drop credits, their dark fiber credits, their rent credits, and then the 4th quarter capital, this $32,000 figure, was for a portion of the build out for the gables. If you'll recall, I think that was a voluntary annexation a couple of years, and we are starting to see some development in that area. There's a small invoice still to be received, but Hotwire has indicated that this is the majority of the cost that we will see for that additional build out for the gables. So we may see a very small amount next quarter.
But how much do we pay for each build out?
So it just depends based on the estimate of the contractor that's hired to do the work. So this was the actual capital build out to extend the services to those areas. And then we would have drop connections, bringing the fiber into the home for each provider that subscribes to the service, which will then show up later here as a drop credit in future quarters.
So Shannon, when I look at, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Shannon, when we are looking at these 4 quarters here, when I look at quarter 1, I look at the 107,975. That's what they have paid to us.
Yes, that's the net check.
Oh, okay. And the same thing for quarter 2.
Yes.
Same thing for quarter 3. And we're just waiting for quarter 4.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So we've received the other 3 checks and we're just waiting for this 4th quarter check.
Correct.
Okay.
And when was that due, Shannon?
That was due the 15th of August, and Hotwire has indicated that they have the check in transit to us. We are trying to track that check down.
Okay. And so with the other checks that they paid to us, I know that at one point they were a little bit behind on meeting the quarterly payments. Did Q3 come in on time?
I would have to look at the actual date I received the checks. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is actual money that goes into our broadband fund.
Correct.
Okay.
We book the gross revenues and then we take the credits as expenses on the expense side.
Right. And the dark fiber is actually the cost for us as a city to have dark fiber. Is that correct? Or is that dark fiber for some other reason?
That is for, Graham might have to help me here on the contract, but I believe that is a credit that they were allowed in the lease agreement for the maintenance on those lines that the city uses.
Okay.
So those are feeding dark fiber into our various city locations.
Okay. But we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, that was a negotiated amount during the lease negotiation.
Okay. Very good.
Same thing with the rent. That's a flat amount negotiated in one of the amendments.
And so, I mean, this is what's going to show up as a real number in our audit.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right.
I have one other question, Shannon. When I look at the lease credit capital line, I don't start seeing anything until we get to Q4. Why is that? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
So there were no capital credits that they requested in Q1, Q2, and Q3.
Oh, okay. But they're requesting a capital credit for Q4.
Yes, for the build out of the gables.
Oh, okay. With you.
Those are new customers.
Okay.
Potential. Okay.
Yeah, they don't have a credit every quarter that they request in capital expansion.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no additional questions, I'll go on to the next slide, which are the net subscriber counts. These come directly from Hotwire. And you will notice from the beginning of the current or the previous fiscal year, July of 2019, there were a total of 3,309 subscribers, unique subscribers. And by the end of the fiscal year, we were at 3,516, which is a net increase of 207 throughout the fiscal year. And these do not include any of our individual accounts that the city handles.
When you say unique subscribers, does that mean that if somebody has the triple play, has video, internet, and voice, they're only counted in one of those three buckets?
My understanding from the statistics that they provide, they count each of their subscriptions here in each individual line based on what folks have in their packages. But this total subscriber is actual individual unique subscriber accounts. So someone could have video, internet, and voice, but they're only counted one time down here in their total.
Oh, okay. Those numbers don't add up. I get it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Some may have single, double, or triple play.
Right.
Okay.
The dark fiber, there are two customers. Are we one of them?
Those are, none of the city accounts are counted here. These are two unique outside of the city of Salisbury accounts.
Okay.
I think that's been pretty consistent since the beginning for dark fiber.
I think it's good that the data center is being used more.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big increase.
That is.
And you can see that the internet's where, I mean, we get most of our money from internet. That's about a 10% increase in 1 year. That's a plus.
Yep. It's exciting. Okay. Any other questions from council on this? If not, you can move on.
Okay. And so that is the update for our 2020 financials that have significant information to share. And so I'll kind of switch gears real quick to our FY 2021. I prepared the report before our August month was closed. So in looking at July, there's not a lot of key performance indicators to show any significant changes really in any of the funds from last July to this July. But what I did want to provide you was an update on where we're at for our FY 2021 fund balance number. And so if you remember, in the FY 21 budget process, we did adopt a fund balance of $870,462. We came back to council on our our August 4th meeting, and we appropriated the $200,000 that was in last year's budget for Dixonville. That contract was not awarded before the end of the fiscal year, so we could not carry those funds forward. We needed to appropriate that money out of fund balance. So that's really just essentially taking last year's budget appropriation and moving it into this year. We still will have to, at some point in the current fiscal year, bring back to you our Bell Tower Green contribution. If you'll recall, that is actually a match to the part of grant for $350,000 that the city would pay to subsidize that part of program. And so that'll have to come back to council at a later date. I think we're still working on that contract with the committee. And then we have various carry forwards. Most of these projects, City Park Lake, if you'll recall, we started the project. There were some delays because of COVID construction. So that still has $89,000 left on that contract that will carry forward into FY 21. The plaza projects, there were some roof and wall repair projects. Kind of the same story. We weren't really able to have some of our bid meetings because of social distancing. So those contracts and bids were not awarded until the end of the fiscal year. So those will need to be carried forward. We continue with our ERP software implementation. So there's $255,000 left in that project. And then we have various other small projects that departments didn't quite finish some of the contracts. There's like half a dozen or so items itemized in here in the 120. And so based on the current information that we have to date, we're looking at a fund balance appropriation in the current fiscal year for FY 2021 of approximately $2.47 million.
Hey, Shannon, with the other small projects, does council have that itemized list of who those contracts went to?
Yeah, I can certainly get you a list. I think there's a downtown incentive project that didn't get completed. But yeah, there's half a dozen or so of those. I can get you an itemized list.
Oh, okay. Okay. And when we're looking at these contracts, were these contracts that had to be put out for bid? Some of the smaller ones?
It depends on the amount. I think our current contract for buying stuff that's less than $5,000, we can get just quotes.
Oh, okay.
Anything. It depends on the contract based on the purchasing policies of the state and the city's current purchasing policy.
Okay. And can we get a breakdown also when you send that to us, how many of these small contracts actually went to NWBEs?
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Anything else, Shannon?
That is it.
That is it. Okay. And that's just for information. We don't need to make a any kind of vote on that.
Correct.
Okay.
Just an update.
All right. Very good.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We
Thanks,
appreciate
Shannon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, Lane, do you have anything else?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. So we're at number 15, Mayor's announcement. The City of Salisbury continues to encourage all of our residents to complete the 2020 census, either online at 2020census.gov. You can do it by telephone at 844-330-2020 or by mail before the deadline of September 30th, 2020. Responding accurately to the census will provide millions of federal funds for needed programs in Rowan County, such as schools, hospitals, employment initiatives, drug rehabilitations, and roadway construction. An undercount would mean a loss of the state of $74 billion over the next 10 years. An undercount could also result in overcrowding in our schools due to the inaccurate count of school-age children, loss of necessary health programs, or delayed road rehabilitation. All responses will be confidential by law. Please visit 2020census.gov for more information. It's estimated that every person who responds to the census is worth almost $2,000 for each community. So it's very, very important. B, applications for the 2020-2021 Historic Preservation Incentive Grants are now available. These matching grants are available on a competitive basis for exterior projects on owner-occupied houses in Salisbury's 4 residential local historic districts: North Main Street, Brooklyn South Square, West Square, and Ellis Street Graded School. Applications are due by September 25th, 2020. To receive an application or inquire about eligibility, please call 704-638-5212. At this time, we're at number 16. Are there any comments by council?
Hey, Karen, I'd just like to say a couple things. First of all, if anybody in the community knows Officer Rebecca Sexton, who we gave her sidearm and badge tonight in honor of her retirement, she's just been a great officer. She's been my community resource officer in the neighborhood that I live in. I've had a chance to do things at the schools with her over the years, and I just wanted to thank her for all her work. And you can't see because we're in video, but my shirt has little bicycles on it for a reason tonight. I'm very excited that we got the Greenway Bicycle Pedestrian Committee newly formed. It's very important with us developing a park downtown and trying to make us more accessible and walkable, more desirable, as we saw some presentations tonight about communities and our opportunities. It's just a very exciting time. And I know in 2020, it's been hard to find those bright spots, but this is a good step forward. So I'm excited to see what that group does, working with Nick and all the great folks at Parks and Rec. So thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Anyone else have anything to add? Any council person?
Well, I'll jump in. I just want to give my congratulations to Officer Sexton as well. Very excited about our Greenway Committee adding the bicycle pedestrian portion of that. That's just so important to our city. So I'm just really so happy to see that continuing to go forward. Want to again give a shout out to Deputy Chief Sean Barnes. We are really going to miss him. He was such an asset to our police department, and we know that whoever is gaining him is getting a really great guy. Want to also lift up our fire department for the wonderful rescue that you did this week, helping families as the flooding was taking place. Our officers and our firefighters really put their lives on the line to protect all of us, and we just really appreciate them.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment on something that Al said, which is that Sean is going to Chicago, where he's going to be in charge of training for about half of the police force that up there the non-armed police force, which 15,000 people. I mean, it's an enormous responsibility and big job in an enormous city.
Thank you, David. And I would like to just do a shout out to the Stormwater Department for their wonderful project doing the Town Creek cleanup. And that was such a big success. And thank you to all the citizens who joined them, because this is very important, cleaning up our creeks. I'm also very excited about the Greenway and the Bicycle Pedestrian Committee being formed and being willing to work together and create a bigger committee. That committee is going to be very important in terms of supporting additional grant applications for now bicycle and pedestrian projects, not only our Greenway. So I really appreciate that. It was so exciting to be able to honor Sean Barnes with a surprise proclamation. He was very surprised, was not expecting that last Friday at his going away event. And we're just so proud of all the huge amount of work that he did for our community. And our Salisbury Police Chief Jerry Stokes gave him so much credit for the community policing model and all the work he did in that. So, and also thanks to our fire department for all of their work in the rescue at Wellington Hills. And I think we had another one down near the highway that somebody got stuck with the water. So we are now at number 19, which is I will need a motion to go into closed session. Did you have a chance to our attorney, Graham Coyer, to get the wording that we need on that?
Yeah, I just state the reasons, the motion to go into closed session, and then state the reason, whether it's we can an attorney or for a personnel matter.
Yes, it's so I need a motion to go into closed session to continue on a personnel issue. So do I have a motion? Council.
So moved.
So moved. So I'll let you be first, and I, or since you put it in.
Call for the vote. Okay, aye.
Yes. And Tamara Sheffield.
Aye.
Brian Miller.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
And Karen Alexander, aye. So we will now go into closed session. So Kelly, will you help us with that, or have you already sent us all a?
Yes, you all should have a meeting request, a calendar request with a new link. We'll close this meeting out, and the public will still be on the live stream, but it'll be a closed session. But this meeting will end while we go into closed session so that we can have breakout rooms. And once we finish there, we'll come back and open this meeting back up.
Okay, thank you. So council, if you will leave this meeting, and then Kelly has sent a link to our closed session.
Do we actually leave this meeting?
Yes. You leave it, and then Okay, so we are.
Kelly, we need to leave here and go to the other session. Is that right?
What do you think, Graham? If we can close out from here, or do we need to go back to the original meeting? This is being live streamed.
This is?
Yes, this open session part.
Is this the open session that we're in right now?
Yes.
Oh, so we can do it from here then, right?
We can do it from here. I never logged out once I logged into the closed session is my only concern.
I had to log you out. When I left, it had to close the meeting.
And that just automatically put us back in.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean, if we're live and we're in open session.
Yes, we are.
Closed session now, and
so no decision was made. So I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. We have one from David. Al Higgins.
Aye.
Tamara Sheffield.
Aye.
David Post.
Aye.
Brian Miller.
Aye.
Karen Alexander. Aye. So thank you all. See you later.
Okay, bye-bye. See you, Grant.